It seems like there is a raging debate now that the Jazz men,
and stuff.
gentlemen, have won 9 of their last 10 games. And certainly you would think it'd be 10 of 11 after they dismantle the Rockets. That the Jazz are once again one of the best teams in the NBA, perhaps the best team in the Western Conference. Jake, what's say?
Yeah, I don't think they're top three in the Western Conference, and the only reason I say that is I look at the top three teams, and I just think that they're better. I think they have more talent and they're more capable. So I think the Suns, the Warriors, and the Grizzlies are all better than the Utah Jazz. Now, that said, the Jazz are capable of beating anybody on any night. It should be like I want you guys to hear me say that. The Jazz are capable of beating any of these teams on any given night. But the reason that I say that I think the Suns, the Warriors, and the Grizzlies are better than the Utah Jazz is because I think those three teams in particular have more ways to win basketball games than the Utah Jazz do. I think you look at the Suns, a lot of people yesterday in the show said, well, the Jazz only beat the Suns because Chris Paul was out, X, Y, and Z. I'm not one of those guys. I say that, hey, the Jazz beat the Suns. They beat the Suns team that was put in front of them. The Jazz shouldn't be penalized for that. But when I look at a fully healthy Suns team in a 7-game series in the postseason, let's say, that's obviously a different beast. And that's why I say I think that the Suns are a better team because they've proven their quality. They've proven they're able to beat you in many different ways, inside, outside, fast, slow. They can basically do it all. So that's why I think the Suns are better. The Warriors, I feel like, are a little bit different. The Warriors feel like a team that have sort of come up from the bottom feeder position in the league while Clay was out for 2 years and Wiseman's been out. And it feels like Curry has kind of held them along and strung them along, and now they're back to where they were. You've got both Clay and Steph playing really well. Draymond Green isn't even back yet. And this team is second in the West. So imagine what's going to happen when Draymond Green comes back on fresh legs and they make their playoff run. I think we can all agree they're better than the Utah Jazz. And then, of course, there's the controversial Memphis Grizzlies, which I think is a very close comparison to the Jazz. The reason I give the Grizzlies the edge is because I think they're a tougher team. They're a grittier team. I think they will win the emotional battle in a 7-game series. And I think guys like Desmond Bane are the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. That guy will break you, in a 7-game series. And I think, I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is somebody who is going to be a problem for the Jazz, specifically in the matchup against Rudy. So that's why I think those three teams are better than the Jazz. But I just can't get down with anybody saying that the Mavericks are better or the Nuggets are better or anybody below them are better because I just don't think that those teams have what it takes to beat the Jazz in a 7-gamer.
Well, and I think the other part of this conversation that's so interesting is the matchups. I mean, I still maintain that the team that comes out of the West, in my opinion, is either going to be Golden State or Memphis. I think what Ja Morant right now is doing is nothing short of incredible. And I don't care if it's the San Antonio Spurs or your mom's knitting circle. He is dunking on people all over the place.
Yeah.
And you look at the way that he has improved his shot, the shot range, that three-pointer from essentially Dallas last night. Like, I think he was in the city of Dallas, and that went in the city of San. The shot was over the Alamo into. Anyway, it was really long and deep, and that's what I've heard before too, many times. But my point is, Ja Morant has improved his three-point shooting. His defense now is, I think he's one of the better defensive point guards in the league. Like, this guy is doing everything. The Jazz have no answer for that. Okay, well, nobody has an answer for that. But then the issue is, how do you guard Jaren Jackson Jr.? How do you guard Bane? How do you guard this guy and that guy in slow-mo? And I think that team is exponentially better than most people give them credit for. I think they are a better team than the Utah Jazz, Memphis. The other team that obviously you talked about that I agree with is the Golden State Warriors. Like, I look at the way that Klay Thompson is recovering. They're not relying on him to win games. The guy they miss is Draymond Green. But again, Draymond's not a guy that relies on a soft death touch to score the basket, right? He's a guy that distributes the ball, rebounds, runs the floor, kicks to Steph. Like, that guy can get healthy and play And if they get Steph, Clay, and Dre back, I think that's the best team in the Western Conference. I think they are better than the Utah Jazz when they are at full strength. I think the Suns are a very interesting conundrum for the Jazz. I think you're looking at a team that's very different without Chris Paul. I don't know what I don't care about the regular season. So that game the other night, it was great. It's a statement. It's nice to have the energy and the win on the road, but I don't know that it means anything come, postseason. I don't. Does it give you confidence going head to head with them? I don't know. Maybe it should. I have no idea. But what I know is, no matter the team you talk about, the Utah Jazz are playing far better basketball than they had been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because everything now is running through Donovan. And I think that's what I've been asking for a long time, Jake. And I think you're starting to see now the Jazz have philosophically changed the way they're balling, and it's going through Donovan, and they've won 9 of 10 doing it.
Yeah, and it's funny what happens when you put the ball in your best player's hands, and I think that Donovan, as we've talked about, just has to make good decisions, and I think he's improved in that area. It goes without saying that defensively he has improved quite a bit. I mean, you can literally see all the effort he's putting in if you're watching the games, and I think offensively, I look at players like, the Ja Morants of the world, or these players that get up and down in transition for the easy basket. I think that's what Donovan can bring, that making sure that the team is playing with pace. One thing I noticed when they were playing against the Lakers the other night when they had lost that game is that they were playing really slow. They were playing really kind of just very methodical. I'm not going to say lifeless basketball, but they were just kind of walking it up the floor, they didn't really feel too energetic in that game. And I think the Jazz best basketball is when they're playing kind of in that frenetic pace where, they don't have to play straight up half court set to set basketball where they can get the transition bucket. Then Rudy can get a block, and then they can get out, and get a nice wide open transition three. And that, that kind of pace is where the Jazz really thrive. And I think when you put the ball in Donovan Mitchell's hand early in the game, I'm talking about, first 5 to 7 possessions, just let him carry the ball up and get you into a good offensive rhythm. I've noticed that really helps this team kind of get going and get into the flow.
Yeah, and I think that the point you make about the pace of play for the Jazz, that to me is really compelling. I look at that a lot over the last month. And again, I just think you have to look at pre-Don concussion, post-Don concussion. This is a different team, only they still play plodding basketball a lot of times. And I think a lot of this revolves around Mike Conley.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mike's age and I think the miles on those tires are starting to add up. And I know I said it yesterday, and I've been saying it a lot, but I think Mike Conley is struggling to finish at the rack. Like when you look at him in the paint, that little push floater teardrop layup that has been such an invaluable part of his arsenal has not been there this year. Is that because of age and lift and legs? It could be. But I also think that, their highest best offense has come when Donovan's on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And that's both good and bad. I mean, there are a lot of turnovers that you just wish didn't happen. But I also don't want Jordan Clarkson bringing the ball up. I also don't want Mike Conley playing 40 minutes a night.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, Mike is still an elite three-point shooter. He is still an elite passer. But I don't think teams fear him as much as they had previously. And so it'll be interesting to see how some of that plays out. And this is why I look at a guy like Satoransky, who was available, who winds up going back to Washington.
Right.
I know the Jazz had interest in him. At least that's what I was told. I was surprised that they didn't make a harder run at him. I'm surprised that Jared Butler's not getting developed because I see the decline in Mike Conley, and I think it's been precipitous, and I think it's been a part of the untold story of this team.
Right. Yeah.
And I wonder if, like maybe this is just not Mike Conley focusing on the season and this is him saving himself for the postseason. I don't know. But what I do know is this team is playing really good basketball, and I don't feel like Mike Conley's like an integral part of their success right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's integral in certain situations. I think generally speaking, you're right. I think, this game against the Suns, Mike had a nice start to the game where it felt like he had made a couple threes. He obviously was playing pick and roll with Rudy, and so he had made some plays. But I don't think that Mike is an integral part of the team in the sense that they absolutely have to have him to win games. I mean, hell, the guy was on the bench for most of the closing stretch of the game. I mean that tells you everything you need to know. But I think what's really interesting on the Jared Butler front is the Daniel House, Royce O'Neal situation, because the Jazz have shown a willingness to give House plenty of minutes now after his contribution. And yes, I know that his contribution obviously has been more impactful than Jared Butler's. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But I just think the process by which that played out is kind of what you have to do with Jared Butler. Obviously, Jared Butler's not going to take Mike Conley's spot, and I'm not advocating for that. But what I am advocating for is you need to play the guy. You need to, he needs minutes. And so now we're at a point in the season where obviously you're kind of in the final stretch, and your priority most likely, if you're Quinn Snyder, is just making sure that your starting five is healthy and the chemistry is good, and you're basically just ready to go for the postseason. Because at this point, again, as we detailed yesterday and last week, you're going to be in the 4 seed unless you just have some terrible collapse, let's say, and you lose like 10 of your next 15
or if
something.
Memphis fell apart or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there would have to be some kind of crazy swing for the Jazz not to be in the 4 seed one way or the other. Point is that that's likely where you're going to be, and they know that. So, unfortunately, their priority is going to be getting ready for the postseason and making a run. But I'm telling you, the priority should be getting Jared Butler minutes and continuing to develop him while you do that. And I just don't think that's the case.
Yeah, and I know we talk about that particular topic a lot. It is stunning to me that Jared Butler has not gotten more minutes. It's...
And I would think it would help their case, too, to get back to the original question we're asking, which is, are the Jazz a top 3 team in the Western Conference in the NBA? I think if you had a consistent contributor in Jared Butler, even if it was only for 10 minutes a night, again, it needs to be said, we're not advocating for Jared to play 30 minutes a night. We're not advocating for him to step into Jordan Clarkson's role.
Right.
We're just saying, hey, a guy that can spell Mike Conley for 10, maybe 15 minutes a night.
But, Jake, think about it against Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Ja Morant's wearing your ass out.
Yeah.
It just didn't...
Mike Conley can't stay with Ja Morant. Not
Exactly.
many can, but I'm telling you that if there was going to be somebody who could, I think Jared Butler's athleticism and quickness as a young guy, he's got life in his legs because he's young, could potentially, make Ja Morant's life a little more difficult.
Well, and let's be honest about it. I think when you're looking forward and you're projecting, I'm a big matchup guy, right? So if I'm looking forward, how do the Jazz defend a Ja Morant? Because there's so much that happens when he's bringing the ball up and his hair's on fire and he's sprinting down the floor and he gets into the paint. He's either going to dunk on you or somebody's shooting an open 3.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the Jazz really struggle with defensively, in my opinion, is they overcorrect. They overhelp on defense. And I think what you see is guys like, Buckets O'Bench wind up. I have to. It's one of the greatest things you've ever said. I think when you look at a guy like Royce O'Neal, he overhelps. He overhelps defensively. You look at Bojan Bogdanovic. How many times have we seen Bogey in no man's land defensively?
Bojan.
Not helping, but not defending.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to help. Well, maybe I won't. Oh, don't get dunked on. Okay, I'm out.
Bojan Bogdanovic.
Right? Like, you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to get purtled by Ja Morant.
Right.
I said purtled.
Yeah, he got hurtled.
Anyway,
right.
The point is, that matchup terrifies me. The Phoenix matchup really worries me because I think the Jazz have shown they struggle against teams in the mid-range. Like, when you have an elite mid-range team, I think it's something that the Jazz don't have the physical bodies to compete against elite mid-range teams.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell guys to press out, to press out to the three-point line. You can tell guys to do that. That's one way to do it. The problem is when you're doing that, Rudy's one-on-one with everybody else who gets by you.
Yeah.
Well, when Jaren Jackson Jr.'s out there, you're not going to be able to press out to the three-point line and just be 5 guys on the arc.
Yeah.
That's not going to work because Ja Morant's going to break you down. That matchup terrifies me is the way I would say it. But when you're talking about how good the Jazz are playing right now today, hell yeah, they're one of the best teams in the NBA. But we saw last year they were the best team in the NBA.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as this team has home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, I think you're going to win a series. If you're sleeping on Dallas, and again, I see all of the yesterday people were tweeting me memes of, how, Rudy Gobert is Luka Doncic's daddy. And, it's like, okay, that's cool, bro. That's one isolated situation in February.
Yeah.
And I just think that you don't have a guy in Luka, as much as I want to punch him in the face and pound his mom.
You're casual.
Probably came out wrong, but his mom is still hot. Anyway, the point is, I look at Luka Doncic, he makes the guys around him better.
Right.
He does. And whether it's Bullock, whether it's, Tim Hardaway Jr., like you look at some of the guys who have been there that he's given more space to that have made them better players.
Brunson.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like that's what scares you about Dallas. But if you have home court advantage, you feel like you should win that series.
Yeah, the Jazz should win a series against Dallas.
Yeah, but I think
I don't think it's a cakewalk, but they should win it.
But only if you have home court advantage.
Well,
if you got to play 4 of the 7 in Dallas, I'm not so thrilled about that.
Yeah, well, home court advantage last year didn't mean anything to this team. I mean, honestly, it didn't decide anything. So I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying the past. Right,
Jake. We all know you hate the Jazz.
Yeah,
we know
it real.
Yeah, we all know that you're just a casual and you're a hater.
Yeah, I mean that's who I am.
Somebody in the YouTube comments yesterday was like, "You guys aren't casuals. You're just haters."
You're casual.
Okay.
So is that a backhanded compliment? Well, you guys aren't casuals. I mean, you watch the game, but you are haters. So
sorry if you're offended by that.
I'm never coming back. Okay.
And then he's back next show commenting.
Enjoy your life. Snuka! I just like saying your name like that. Hi, Snuka. Good to see you, my friend. Edgar Garcia, what's up? Good to see you, players. Steve Hambone, good morning, guys. Let's go, Jazz. Hambone. Jeremy Bolton says, morning. Jaron Hall. Jeremy, put your clothes on. That's going to get you on the registry at some point. JP Shanahan, what's up? He says 4th. Okay. If you're not first, you're 4th. Bolton also says, I think it should be required to be a Jaron Hall fan to win the PS5. Could be. Blind Swordsman DS says, no to the Jazz are not elite yet, but let's see the following weeks and good morning.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Good morning, Shanahan. Calvin Johnson said, is Zion Williamson, John Morant, the new Greg Oden, Kevin Durant? Wow. That could be. You are a savage, sir. B, I don't disagree with that at all. I think, and again, this was odd. Okay, so I said that on this channel that Zion Williamson is a bust. I've said it for going on 2 years. I put it on TikTok, and you'd have thought that, I kicked somebody's mom or something.
3/4 of this is inaccurate.
People you're an idiot. You don't watch the league. Do you watch basketball? Have you ever seen him play? No. Zion who? He plays lacrosse, right?
Because it's garbage.
Are you sure he's not a jockey for horse racing?
So get your facts straight.
Idiot.
Blind
Sportsman says, although you tell Jake Scott, he be like the Jazz are better than the Grizzlies, which I see either side on that one. I would like somebody to explain to me how the Jazz are better than the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Jake Scott, A, he works for the team. I'm not sure what you would expect him to say. B, there's not a matchup that favors the Jazz on that whole thing.
Nah.
I mean, any team that's got a big who can pull Rudy away from the basket has a significant advantage over the Jazz.
Yeah.
And then when you have a big that can pull Rudy Gobert away from the basket and you have one of the best finishers at the rim who is body snatching.
Yeah.
Okay. And John Morant. I mean, what's it going to be? You're going to let Jaren Jackson Jr. beat you?
You're so fucked.
He already made a game winner on you.
It's true.
He was wide open.
Yeah.
Because what was Rudy doing? Better. Oh, Like, it's that whole better go to the rim, protect the three. You're not doing both.
No, you can't.
You're not. And the way they reverse the basketball, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm telling you, a 7-game series, Memphis is winning that series. And I think it'd only be 5-6 games.
Yeah.
So, and I like Jake. I try to listen to Ben and Jake. Jake's been off a lot lately. So it is what it is. Shanahan says, I'm actually on time. You don't think Phoenix has a chance to win the West? Obviously I'm a book fan. I
You?
think me?
What?
I mean, my Jaron Hall is Devin Booker. See, that's
a right.
it's a Jeremy Bolton reference.
Right.
You know.
Your Jaron Hall is Devin Booker. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
We got it. Yep.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. Is Chris Paul healthy, or does he have 2 broken hands again? Or did he pick his groin up off the floor in Houston from 5 years ago? Like,
water's wet.
And Chris Paul's hurt in the playoffs.
I think that's HIPAA.
It just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that the fatal flaw in Phoenix is that they are very reliant on Chris Paul to be elite. And I understand it. He creates space for everybody, and he's an excellent passer, excellent ball handler, really crafty, pretty savage. Like, he'll pick up 5 extra fouls on dudes during a game, and all of a sudden you're in the penalty. And when he's not there, Devin Booker's got to bring the ball up, and they're not as good without Chris Paul. So, I don't know. Tell me if Chris Paul's is healthy. That's what it does. Darrell King, good morning to you, friend. He says, Jazz probably a second-round exit again. Bring Karl Malone back. I think Carl's out looking for all the children. Never mind. I'm not going to go there. What? It's not my fault.
Wow, dude.
Hey, man. Dak,
he's an assassin.
He makes babies very well. JP Shanahan says 10-day contract. Anyone? They should sign me. Darren Sproul. Darren Sproles? Did you know Darren Sproles listens to the show?
Who the fuck are you?
Yeah. Dallin says Mike Conley. My neighbor's name is Dallin. Are you Dallin Levitt? I'm unfocused.
Yeah.
Dallin says Mike Conley as well as Bogdanovich being role players when he needs to be more. They need more than just Don on offense. That's frustrating with Bagsnatchovich is that
Bagsnatchovich.
I haven't gotten a breakout of Bojan Bagsnatchovich in a long time.
Bojan Bogdanovic.
Bojan Bogdanovic needs to be a 20-point-a-night guy, and he's not. And in big games, he tends to be that 11, 12, 13-point guy. And some part of me wonders why they don't feature him. Well, I know why they don't feature him, and it's because they don't run offense.
Right.
A lot of times when the game is tight or the game's on the line, it's okay, hey, give Don the ball, and by the way, here's your ticket. Have a seat and watch him
Here's
play
what's
ball.
going to happen, Tonto.
You're going to get out of the way, right? Like, that's what this is. Somebody's going to come set a screen, and Don's going to get into the paint.
Which I just don't understand, because that is not elite level basketball. I mean, pick and roll is it's as old as the game is itself. And I think that, the Bogey issue is the problem is it's not his own doing. He's one of the few players on the team where I can honestly say, if you were to give him more opportunities, I think he would make them. But the problem is, one game you're giving him like 5 shots, and the next game you give him like 15, and there's no consistency.
Well, and it's because he can't create his own shot. Bojan Bogdanovic is reliant on reversal. He's relying on drive and kick. And what do we always say on this team? Too often, the drive and kick game goes away. Too often, there isn't this ability to create offense by running sets because the Jazz don't run sets.
Which I don't understand, by the way.
So it is, at times it's paralyzing to this team because I agree, Dallin. I think they become very much Don and everybody else, as we like to say on this show.
It's easy to defend. That's the thing. It's not difficult to defend that when this team goes that route.
And Donovan is, and I think this summer he'll take a huge step forward, but he needs to become the guy where if you pick him up at 3/4 court, he is going to ball handle around you. Right now, he's going to give up the basketball.
Right.
And they have to figure out, and this is why, again, not to be redundant, but this is why Mike Conley's so important to be healthy. They need Mike to bring the ball up and put Donovan in a position where it's more difficult to double him. Because it's not hard to double him in the backcourt. We saw that a couple of years ago in the bubble against Denver when he gave the ball up.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just one of these things where the Jazz are just 2-3 guys short of being championship caliber. And we'll see what Danny does over the summer. I would like to think that he would make changes. John Jackson, what's up? Good to see you, dude. Do you think Mitchell does better as a point guard or a shooting guard? I don't think there's any doubt he does better not bringing the ball up.
Yes.
I also don't like putting guys into, like the cough was gone. And it's so frustrating. I woke up last night. I went to bed. I got to bed on time, about 9:30. Woke up at 10:50 with a coughing fit. And it's just freaking frustrating.
Yeah.
This little cough that could. Anyway.
Little cough that could.
And does. I think Don's better off the ball as a shooting guard, if you want to pigeonhole guys.
I think the best scorers in the league need to be off the ball because that's how they get to their spots. I mean, you notice that a lot of times, Book doesn't, like when Chris Paul's healthy, Book doesn't bring the ball up. When the Bulls are their best, DeMar DeRozan's not bringing the ball up. When the Nets are their best and everyone's healthy, KD's not bringing the ball up. Your best scorers need to be off the ball so they can get that, so they can get lost in the paint and then get back out to the perimeter and get that open look.
But that also speaks to the point that the Jazz don't run offense.
Yeah.
Like I look at Devin Booker, and I think that's a great point. Devin Booker loves to be, free throw line extended. Standing at the 3-point line, Paul will bring the ball up either middle or offset to the opposite side, and Booker just runs that little curl, and Paul will get him the ball, and Devin's either going to shoot a three or get to his mid-range. And a lot of times what they do out of that set is give the ball to Booker, he penetrates and kicks to the corner to Mikal Bridges, who shoots a three. It gives them options. It gives them versatility. The Jazz don't have that because they don't run offense.
Right.
They don't run sets like that. And I think it's one of the things that I'd really like to see them change. To your point, and what I said earlier was, hey, give Donovan Mitchell the best opportunity to impact the game.
Yeah.
Allow him to get to the spot where he is comfortable. And right now, I think too often he's comfortable shooting, long range threes, which God bless his hands. I mean, it's going in.
Yeah.
But
it's not reliable.
I think there's a lot. I don't want him shooting 30% shots. I want him shooting 60, 70, 80% shots.
Well, it's you were watching the Bulls game last night, and we were kind of talking about how DeMar, basically has his spots on the floor where he operates, which is essentially the free throw line elbow to elbow. And you notice that the Bulls make a concerted effort to get him the ball in those areas. And that's what I think running sets and really running a true offense could do for this team. Because, again, we've talked ad nauseum on the show about how the Jazz lack some athleticism. Guys like Bogey are never going to be accused of being the most athletic guy in the NBA, And so knowing that that's the case, why wouldn't you run offense to accommodate that? And that's the thing. That would be, for all, because I know we have a lot of people who are like, well, Quinn doesn't make adjustments and they need to move on from Quinn, blah, blah, blah. So for the people who hate on Quinn, like that would be my complaint. Why don't we run more sets? Why don't we get guys in positions where the opportunity for them to be successful is higher? That's what we should be doing in this offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Okay, correction time.
Okay, here we go.
Darrell King
Uh-huh.
says, not sure why my parents spelled my name like that, but it's pronounced Daryl.
Keep it real.
Love y'all. Sorry, Daryl. I'm a terrible person.
Now, let me ask you this. Is it 2 R's and 1 L or 1 R and 2 L's?
No, it's 2 R's and 2 L's and 2 E's.
Damn.
Derrell.
Well,
that's Darrell.
Sorry, buddy.
But Daryl.
Sorry, dude.
No, it's Daryl, and Daryl.
Let's settle this right now.
Yeah. Let's settle this right now. It's Daryl. Frank H. says Golden State seems to have fallen from grace. Memphis, Utah, Phoenix are the real contenders. Right now, today, I'd agree with that. I think that the Dubs are missing. Draymond Green is one of the most underrated players in the league. But to tell you his impact, Utah Jazz fans have been obsessing about him for 2 weeks now. He ain't even played a game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's Draymond Green's impact. Like, he's in your head, man. Remember when Joe Ingles was in Paul George's head last year in the playoffs? So many people.
That was one of the greatest narratives I've ever heard last year.
If you're new to this show, people are like, oh, the Jazz are going to sweep the Clippers. Joe Ingles is in Paul George's head. And then Paul George goes berserk on this team. It was amazing. Christ destroys communism. Thank you for shortening your name. I do appreciate that. Actually, the Jazz do have that. David Locke pointed that out last night. He broke it down perfectly. They spread the wealth. They've got a lot of weapons. Okay, so when they're playing well, and again, with all due respect to David Locke, he works for the team. What do you expect him to say? David Locke leaves out the part where when the Jazz are playing good, they're the best team in the NBA. So he will just say, oh, man, the Jazz are the best team in the NBA. When the Jazz are going good and they're playing well, they're distributing the basketball. And more guys are getting involved. When they're in crunch time and they've got to have a basket instead of relying on sets that they've run 10,000 times, they're going to rely on Donovan Mitchell to make some crazy look. Like that off-balance bank 3 shot in Phoenix the other day.
It's not going into the playoffs.
How many times do you think that ball's going in?
That's, a 20% look maybe?
And it's a great shot. It went in awesome.
Yeah, give him credit, But
what would you rather have? Donovan shooting off the wrong foot, banking a 3 in, or driving into the paint and kicking to Bogey, who hits an open 3 look? I'll take the driving kick.
Yeah.
Every time. And the problem is when it's crunch time, when it's the Clippers and it's the playoffs last year, there was no offensive sets being run.
Yeah.
And when you can't defend in crunch time and you can't run sets in crunch time, let's remember that David Locke said, oh, yeah, they actually do share the ball and they are amazing.
Right.
Well, when you've won 8 of 9 and 9 of 10 and 10 of 11, everybody's happy, right? It's easy to have perspective when things are going well.
Yeah.
What happens when things don't go well? Well, if you're the Utah Jazz, generally what happens is you leave your process to the side of the road.
And it's going to go into crisis lockdown mode here at the house.
And everybody starts playing hero ball.
Yep.
And I know that Quinn Snyder and Donovan Mitchell get all upset and they get their buttholes puckered.
Their buttholes puckered.
When you say, wow, is that hero ball? And they're like, oh, that's offensive. It's disrespectful. Okay, well, call it what you want. I call it Don and everybody else.
Sorry if you're offended by that.
But they get all emotional in crunch time, forget their process, and they're trying to chase a result that they don't have the work put in to gain.
I'm going to say this again.
The best teams in the NBA run set offense that gets them easy looks. Whether it's the Devin Booker curl, whether it is Steph Curry giving the ball to Draymond Green, who then Steph Curry runs a baseline stagger screen.
Yep.
Comes up to the top, shoots a 3, the crowd goes crazy.
Is this the dagger?
And all of a sudden he hits 3 out of his next 4 threes, and you're like, well, shit, now we're down 9. What happened? Well, you didn't run offense, and they did. Like, that's the problem for the Jazz.
Yeah.
That's the problem for the Jazz. With all due respect to David Locke, who, as it was pointed out to me on YouTube the other day, you're a casual. David Locke knows way more than you. Okay, cool.
Right.
Cool, man. That's cool. I'm not saying David Locke doesn't know what he's talking about. But he's paid by the team to say good things about the team. And I'm telling you right now, when crunch time comes, this team does not run offense.
Yeah.
This team relies on ISO basketball. And if you look at the teams that are championship teams, right? What happened to the Brooklyn Nets last year?
Yep.
Everybody got hurt. So what were they forced to do?
Yep.
Run ISO basketball, and Kevin Durant left his toe on the line. And at some point, somebody's going to drop some kryptonite on Superman.
Yeah.
So with the Jazz last year, that kryptonite happened to be stuck to Donovan's ankle.
Yeah.
You know, like it's anyway.
So what happens?
I digress. Jeremy Bolton says Draymond is the most overrated player because he's riding the bench along with his BFF Caruso. Well, he's generally not overrated, and he is pretty rarely hurt.
And by the way, he's won championships.
Multiple championships. And he is one of the best defensive players in the league.
And by the way, let me go ahead and get ahead of he has Steph and Clay. Yeah, by the way, he came in with those guys. They've developed together. They've all been working together out of the draft. So,
well, and it's not that he has Steph and Clay. He has a guy named Bob Myers, the general manager. He has got the Lake Up connection. Like, they have great owners, Golden State has a great ownership group,
But my point
a
is
great general manager.
I don't want people to be accusing Draymond of getting a free ride to championships. He is one of the main reasons why they won those championships.
Yep. Does he win championships if he's the only player on his team in some other city? Probably not.
No.
But guess what? He's not. And he's with Steph and Clay, and they've won multiple rings. So I think the Draymond Green thing, you don't have to like the guy. This is the Rudy Gobert conversation. Rudy Gobert is one of the most disliked players around the NBA. The lack of respect for Rudy Gobert, which largely I think he's earned, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of respect for Rudy around the NBA. If he wasn't on your team, you wouldn't be a fan of Rudy Gobert.
Right.
Like, you're a fan of Steph. You're a fan of, like, Devin Booker is the perfect example.
Right.
Jazz fans hate Devin Booker. And largely, Jazz fans hate Devin Booker because the Jazz didn't draft him.
Right.
He turned into a star and you busted out on some other dude. You know, like, that's not Devin Booker's fault. And it's not his fault he routinely drops 30, 40 points on you. You should have drafted Devin Booker.
Yeah.
Right? But Jazz fans hate him. Why do Jazz fans hate Gordon Hayward? Because he went to the dance with another woman. That's why. And left you in the lurch.
Too fucking bad, man.
So you hate Gordon Hayward now, right? Like, why do you hate Ennis Freedom? Well, because he didn't turn out to be the guy you thought he would be.
Yep.
And when the Jazz trade Rudy Gobert, you're going to hate Rudy Gobert. Because when he's on another team holding your jersey and your shorts, you're going to be like, that's a foul! Like, yeah, it's anyway. You know, it just is what he is, you know.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ Destroys Communism says Daniel House is a huge pickup. He's not a huge pickup. What Daniel House is a contributor, right? So you haven't had, and this is something else that I was talking to a guy on Twitter about this. Daniel House is not a superstar. He is not like there was a Twitter thing the other day about how Daniel House should be known the Jazz have their new best defensive player, not Rudy Gobert. It's like, dude, do you understand that this guy's been on the team like 3 months? And do you understand that they picked him up off the trash heap?
Yeah.
He has bounced around, including Houston, who didn't have a place for him.
Yeah.
The Jazz picked him up, and now all of a sudden Jazz fans are saying he's their lockdown defender. Somebody on Twitter the other day, and I'm not going to call you out for it because it's embarrassing, he's the new Kobe stopper.
The new Kobe stopper.
And I'm just like, dude, this guy,
bro,
you understand that Daniel House is a situation-only guy. He's not somebody you can play 35 minutes a night. He is not a superstar. He is not a stud. He is a perfect fit guy. He plays solid defense, and he can shoot the corner three.
Yeah.
That's what you need him to do. He's a bench player. Don't get all throbbed in the lower extremity over Daniel House.
What's an erection?
Because he plays good defense and shoots the three. Just understand he's a role player, man. He's a role player.
That said, I thought he did a half-decent job on Book.
And he's very good at playing his role.
Yeah.
He's very good at playing his role. And I think he is a good fit here in Utah. And that's why it was a little surprising they let him twist in the wind up to the trade deadline when that 10-day contract ran out. I was a little surprised by that.
Do you think he's better than Royce?
Well, your mom's better than Royce.
Well, I think it's a legitimate question. People aren't talking about it.
I don't think you can play Daniel House starters minutes because he gets exposed. When you leave him out there like a ton of minutes, he gets exposed. So when we talk about whether or not, and I've left it on me forever. When we talk about whether or not, shut up, Jake. When we talk about whether or not Daniel House is a guy that's a star.
Right. He's not a star, dude.
He's not.
No.
Okay, now, can he play starters minutes? Well, I don't know if he can play starters. I would tell you he cannot.
Minutes?
He cannot play starters minutes. I look at the other day he played 22 minutes.
Perfect.
It's great.
Yeah.
But I would say 20 minutes is the perfect number for him.
I will say I do want him in there against their best player in crunch time. I do want him I want to bring him off the bench rested and fully ready to play a really robust 5 to 7 minutes to try to stop somebody.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I looking at his game log, You know, I mean, you just have to look at the numbers.
I think here's what I think excites Jazz fans when they look at this guy. They see that him and Book were going back and forth, and you know, he like, for your, again, not to tear people down, but for your casual NBA fan who just watches a game here, watches a game there, watches the ABC game.
That's us.
Yeah, that's us,
You're
right?
casual.
Right,
Yeah,
you're casual,
you
you
know,
know.
we're
So,
casual.
like, you know, for those people who don't quite understand what's really going on, they're just kind of watching the game for what, like, on a surface level. They're going to say that Daniel House is a great player and he needs more minutes and everything's kosher. But for folks like us and for those of you listening to the show right now who are watching, you know, 4 or 5 Jazz games a week, let's say, or like you're watching most of their games or whatever,
Yeah.
you begin to understand that this is the same conversation that we're having about Royce O'Neal. This is the same conversation we're having about Jordan Clarkson. This is the same conversation we're having about this organization, right? Like, let's be clear on this conversation. This team is full of guys like Bogey, like House, like Royce O'Neal, like Mike Conley, and like Jordan Clarkson, who can't play 40 minutes a night, but who are asked to do things, you know, that they're really not capable of doing. So let's not add House to the list of guys who we're going to ask to play 35, 40 minutes and then be surprised when he gets exposed. Because that's, like, he's not a star. He has a purpose. He is the best comparison I can say is you'd never use a hammer to screw in a screw to the wall, right? He is a hammer. Put him on their best player when you need a stop. When you're up 3 with 4 minutes left to go, bring him in the game. You know, that's what his purpose is.
Like, this is a guy, I'm telling you, this is a guy that plays 20 minutes a night.
And there's nothing
wrong
with
with
that. It should not be taken as, wow, you guys are hating on this guy. We're not hating on this guy. We're being logical, and we're being honest about what his highest and best use is. There's a reason. Listen, if everybody could play 40 minutes a night in the NBA, we wouldn't have appreciation for guys like LeBron and Steph and KD, these guys who are superstars. Not everybody is cut out to be the 40-minute-a-night guy.
Yeah. I think when you look at Daniel House and you start to understand, you know, where is his highest best use? I would tell you that he's a guy that can pick you up half court, and he's a guy who can defend you with tenacity. He needs to evolve and be a smarter defender. You don't need to be man up on Devin Booker, like trying to be in his jock. You're gonna get a foul called on you. Devin Booker has picked up the savvy skill from Chris Paul of favoring the official to blow the whistle.
Yeah, doing things to get the official to blow the whistle.
Yes, and what I would tell you is,
which is absolutely a skill.
That is not his fault. That is not, and I also think one of the interesting things to me is that I think Daniel House does a really nice job of making 1 or 2 threes a game.
Mm-hmm. Big moment threes.
And those are things that Royce O'Neal cannot do.
Timely threes.
Royce O'Neal would rather pass the 3 than shoot in the clutch.
We've seen that.
To the point where he won't shoot. There's 2 seconds on the shot clock. He doesn't know or doesn't care because he's going to pass it either way.
Yeah.
You know, so that to me is the bigger issue. And when you talk about having him out there instead of Royce, well, yeah, absolutely. I'd rather have him out there instead of Royce. I mean, but I look at the somebody's asked me about the 2015 draft.
What does the 2015 draft have to do with the price of tea in China?
They drafted Trey Lyles instead of Devin Booker.
Okay, cool.
They drafted Trey Lyles at 12. I'm not trying to be an
asshole here. What does this have to do with anything?
Why people hate Devin Booker? I mean why Jazz fans hate Devin Booker.
This is as old as time, dude. Jazz fans hate Devin Booker because the front office of the Utah Jazz didn't draft him. That's why they hate him, and he worked out. I mean, this is not complicated. We don't need to go and look at, you know, with all due respect, we don't need to go and look at who was drafted where and X, Y, and Z and who traded what. It's very simple. You passed on Devin Booker for Trey Lyles, and Devin Booker turned into a perennial all-star, and basically at this point, he's working on being a superstar in the league. Like, it's that simple. So I don't blame you for hating Book. I mean, he plays for the Suns, who are basically your biggest rival at this point. I get it. Like he's the villain. I understand.
Yep.
But at the same time, let's not sit here and tear the guy down because you don't like him. You know, again, I think your point about when they trade Rudy, Jazz fans hating on him, that's going to happen. You know that's going to happen. With all due respect, that is what the fan base will do. So all of this to say, just be realistic. That's what you get on this show. We've been telling you that about many different things as far as this team is concerned. Be realistic about who these guys are.
Yeah, and I agree with Forrest G, who says, best thing about Daniel House, and by the way, it's Daniel, U-E-L, it's not Daniel.
You're casual.
Daniel.
Is he comes in when Royce goes out. Give us extended perimeter defense, something we didn't have with Jingle Joe.
When he brings energy.
He
that's
does.
the thing, and that's the biggest difference
that
I don't hear people talking about between him and Royce. It's not just that they're basically the same player, that they play D and they shoot the three. It's how they go about playing that defense. Because I can tell you, based on that matchup with Devin Booker, I agree he should not have been in Devin Booker's grill. He picked up a couple of silly fouls, and he'll make that adjustment. But what I'm specifically talking about is his ability to stay with Book or guys like Book when they drive to the paint. Because if he can stay with Book and be right there on his hip as he goes up, Rudy can help in other ways. And that's what this team doesn't have and needs more of. And that's why I think, in my opinion, he's better than Royce. Because Royce has shown repeatedly, as this season has aged on, that he has lost a step. And I'm not trying to hate on Royce, but guys go by him pretty easy.